Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vital Wisdom with me, Dr. Eli Camp. I have a special guest today, Dr. Peter Swanz. And as you know, this show, this podcast, everything I talk about is based on the paradigm of medicine in which we believe the body has the ability to heal itself if it has what it needs. If you get any poisons out that are, sort of obstacles to being healthy, and you stimulate that innate healing ability within all living organisms on this planet, including humans. When we have what we need and we don't stop things from poisoning, our body has the tendency to move strongly in the direction of health. So today, I couldn't be more excited to have Dr. Peter Swanz. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eli. I'm super excited to be here.
And I'd love if you tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a naturopathic physician, and fortunate we went to school like right at the same time, so we've known each other a long time. And I practice in Louisville, Kentucky, which this is the area of the country where I grew up, and I've been back here. I mean, God, it feels like 15 years now, and out of school 18. My practice is called Vital Force Naturopathy, and the vital force, that is what we're talking about, really, this innate healing ability. And my website's vitalforcenaturopathy.com, and I love talking about this. I work with kids and adults and families, and I really utilize all of the tool bag that we were trained in. And I'm grateful for that, but I'm also a fellow of the Homeopathic Association of Naturopathic Physicians and super passionate about classical homeopathy and using that to support the body's own healing.
Yeah, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
Homeopathy rules all the way. But yeah, we do have a big tool bag, don't we? Herbs, food, homeopathy, and something. So I'm going to tell everybody, I had planned to reach out to Dr. Swanz and say, hey, come be on my podcast. And I have a list of people that I want all of you to hear from. And then one day I'm sitting on social media, my 15 minutes that I give myself a day, that's it, right? Because it can be a time sink if you let it. And I heard this little talk that Dr. Swanz was doing about mindset. And so that's a huge part of our tool bag, is this sort of the way we think and the way we interface with the world and what we tell ourselves. And I reached out to the gal who does my scheduling, Georgina, right away. And I said, okay, we got to get him on, like move him to the top of the list. People need to hear this, especially right now, especially.
Yeah. People want to be empowered, and I feel like, I grew up at a time where, doctors were elevated to this place of expertise. And as the consumer patient, you completely deferred to this knowledge and wisdom, and it was revered. And, it was like it was separate from us, this knowledge. And I feel like, in naturopathic medical school, docere, right, doctor as teacher, the word doctor comes from the word for teacher. We were really liberated in a way to share this wisdom, to share this knowledge, and to empower the patients that we get to work with to be their own doctor, to be their own, physician. And the way I look at it is I'm just part of their team. And so empowering them, giving them these tools and ideas to be proactive for their own health. And I just think, it's unfortunate that our country is as sick as it is, but I think the result is the pendulum swinging back and people are waking up. And, we're now looking at the situations and saying, wait a second, there was a lot of stuff we've been told that doesn't actually apply, doesn't equal health.
Right.
And we need to figure out what is working for ourselves, for our families. And, I think us as practitioners, we're trying to figure it out so we can share more and more knowledge and wisdom with our patients. And
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, when I started medical school, naturopathic medical school, I thought I was pretty healthy and I thought I was doing some pretty good stuff. But
Mm,
man, were my eyes opened, and I had 4 years, and now we graduated 20 years ago. You said 18, but right, it's been 20
right.
years this year. Um, and all that time, so the time in school and all that time living life and working with people and practicing, and man, I'm still figuring out how to be the healthiest version of myself.
Yes.
And uh, most people that I have met had some kind of trauma growing up. And a lot of times it was emotional trauma and the
Mm,
way that they were raised and the way they were talked to and the way they were taught to think. And I've discovered that that really can be very detrimental. And by the time they become adults, the story that they tell themselves about who they are and what they can and can't do has become so ingrained, and it has an incredible impact on the state of their health.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of the problem with the reductionistic mentality, not just in medicine, but really in life in a way, and this is not at all to discredit the significance of the trauma, but we can become fixated on one thing without being able again to pull back. And where this gets really, stressful for patients are the people who aren't fitting in the standard boxes. They don't have all the requirements for an autoimmune diagnosis, or their TSH looks okay, right? And so
Yeah,
they feel miserable, and they've accepted this false belief that they need to have a diagnosis
yeah,
to know what's wrong. And I think, part of again pulling back in this mindset thing is letting people know, like, hey, we can start changing things that aren't working without having to give you a diagnosis. And we don't have to say that there's one thing that's resulted in you being in this state of disease, feeling this sick, feeling this lousy. Let's just start changing. Let's start, figuring out what's not been working and doing more of the things that are. And let's see how much better we can feel, whether we ever give you a diagnosis of, whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. You are
And
not your diagnosis.
right.
No, no. And I know you and I think very similar about this, in that there's no way in a week or 2 weeks or a month to change everything you need to change. Right? You have to start with a step. One step
Mm.
that's in a direction that builds health. I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah, yeah, it's a path. I mean, it's a journey, and I've, from the beginning, I love talking about this stuff. I mean, I think I'm a philosopher at heart, and I really, from the beginning, like, it was clear to me that health is not a static state. It's not a light switch. It's not on or off. It's not we're healthy or we're not. We're just moving to and from health, and really every choice, every thought, every action has the potential to move us a little bit in one direction or the other. And, it's self-awareness, right, is about understanding that the choices I'm making are moving me in one of these directions. And absolutely, I make choices that move me away from health at times
Right,
for other reasons,
right.
and so being aware of that. I think the problem today is so many people are unconscious
Mhm.
of these actions or how certain things are impacting them,
Well,
and
yeah, because they don't start young enough. So, I'm on this journey of becoming Cherokee.
mm,
And this started for me about 4 years ago. I'm in my 50s. I've always known I'm part Cherokee. I'm also part Italian. I'm part Scottish. Like, I've known this my whole life. And in the early part of my life, I identified with being Italian. My mom cooked Italian food. She had all the Italian stereotypical phrases and behaviorisms. And I identified very strongly as being Italian. And one day, I said to myself, this is way before I started this journey, well, what about the Cherokee side? because my grandparents moved away from the reservation before I was ever born. And my grandmother was very into herbs and she always grew a garden and she would always talk about the cycle of life and the laws of nature. And that just was part of my upbringing, which is in complete opposition to the Italian woman who was born in Brooklyn and didn't even see a cow until she was in her 30s. And she lived in the concrete world where the laws of nature are very, very, very different. And so I always had this oppositional way of looking at the world. And when COVID hit, Lord Almighty, COVID hit, and so many people I knew became unrecognizable to me in their behavior and their beliefs. And it didn't jive with my core being of knowing that the body can heal itself and be healthy. And we winged off in the universe to end up here on this homestead teaching ranch. And in that process, something in my DNA woke up, something in my thoughts changed. And I asked the question, well, what does it mean to be Cherokee? And I won't give you the whole story right now, but we should get together and have some late night talks. But it turns out that all of this stuff with the laws of nature and the cycle of life and growing your own food and sustainable and regenerative agriculture and creating health from the day you're born, these are often viewed as like this new wave of medicine in the world of the white man. And I know they don't look very Cherokee, but I have resonated at a very deep level with it. Well, it turns out this is how they live life. They don't have words for it. They just call it life, living at one with the planet. And it's a very particular mindset that I've spent the last 4 years discovering, uncovering, and teaching to others. So let's talk a little bit about mindset.
I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It's such an important piece of the holistic health picture. And I think, again, if we look at the conventional model, how poorly it has handled mental, emotional health medicine. I mean, psychiatry and psychology, so much of what the conventional approach has done has been to try and numb people's emotions and feelings and experiences and just sort of just kind of buffer it. And we're a culture that's, maybe America might be the only country that thinks we're supposed to be happy all the time or something, like
maybe
weird, like this kind of pressure. And that's, I think, just meeting with patients and being able to validate for them, like, hey, it's appropriate right now for you to be anxious about your health or your situation or sad about this, and let them know that, we can start there, and that's okay. And embracing that feeling and accepting it then allows people to then make a shift in the mindset, because now, this isn't wrong. This is understandable. And now we can start to do something different with this. And I think that's an important piece, that initial kind of acceptance, just where things are. Yeah.
I agree. I find often people don't realize that they have the power to think differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just never occurred to them.
Yeah. And it's again, there's a part of it, like we're sort of indulgent as a culture, again, like in these emotions, but it's a weird way in which people get stuck in the emotions. It's not really working through them. It's like, oh, I'm angry, but I'm going to eat a bunch of food so I don't have to feel the anger, versus a more healthy expression of the anger. And again, just helping people to do this. And I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of handling these things poorly, at times too, but becoming more and more aware of these patterns and of these tendencies, and then making shifts. It's just such a beautiful thing. And, I think the homeopathy training that we were so fortunate to have really one, it helped me to see how important the actual flavor of someone's emotional state and their mental thought patterns were, because different remedies have very different flavors to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we got that kind of beaten into our heads as students, like the words matter, the semantics matter, like what we're actually talking about here matters. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel really grateful for that education and that level of, specificity, like needing that to help people the best way that we can.
Absolutely. Often my family won't watch movies or TV shows with me because the whole time I'm like, oh, that person needs that mirror. They would feel so much better. Or,
Right.
the mad scientist who goes out of the house with one shoe on and one shoe up. I'm like, can somebody please give that character sulfur? I so want to do a TV show and base it on homeopathy, like a detective show. I think it would be so cool. So, so I hear through the grapevine. Well, do you want to say anything else about mindset?
I'm just really grateful for it. For this practice and this personal thing. And, I understand I am at times annoyingly optimistic. Like I tend to have a pretty positive spin on most of the things in my own life, even when things are hard and challenging and difficult. So I'm grateful that I'm wired that way, I guess. And able to bring some of that, I think, into my experience and encounters with my patients. I hope that's a little contagious.
I think it is. I've always found your optimism to be contagious. I had a health issue last year I was dealing with, and one of my very good friends, Dr. Preeti Shaw, she would call me and she'd say, "How are you?" And I'd say, "I'm actually doing really good." And after about 3 phone calls, she said, "I think you're in denial. You're always doing pretty good." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you know what? I have a choice to make when I wake up in the morning. I can either wake up and I can be like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? What's happening?" Or I can wake up and I can say, the sun is shining. I'm okay. In this moment right now, I'm fine. I can walk, I can talk, I breathe, I can smile, I can eat my food. Like, and I have things to look forward in the day. For me, I'm okay right now.
Yes.
And after we had that conversation, she quit calling me and saying, "How are you?" "You're in denial." I'm not in denial. I'm choosing a specific way to think about life in this moment and today. Like, I'm not ignoring things. I'm just not going to live in that place because it doesn't feel good to me. So, okay, I heard through the grapevine that and I saw a couple of posts about this, and I could not be more excited for this topic, this book that you're working on, Training for the Bedroom. Tell us about this. Man, I'm excited.
It's so this really kind of, I mean, it's really my own personal journey in a lot of ways, like what it is becoming an older man, and really a healthier man, and embracing that in society. I'm fortunate. I have two daughters who were both born while we were in medical school, and they're in their 20s now,
Yeah.
21 and 24, and it's this crazy world that we're kind of living in. And um I played soccer, and I played rec leagues up until like 6 years ago, and it just got to the point as I'm getting older, my knees were not loving me playing soccer anymore. And what, even for these just rec competitive leagues, having like 2 days where my knees were achy and icing, and I was like, I got to give up soccer. And so
Yeah.
I was asking myself, I'm like, all right, at this phase in my life, like, what am I really training for? Like, what am I doing? What do I do competitively? And it was kind of this joke I had with this other comic buddy of mine. We started talking about it, and I was like, oh man, I guess I'm really just training for the bedroom. Like, there's nothing else that I want to do. And we were laughing about it, and he was like, dude, that's your book title. Like, that's the good book title. And so this came about as a vision a few years back. And yeah, I immediately bought the domain name, right? And like started thinking about this stuff. And it just really, I mean, it's been born again from my own journey, from like my own personal journaling, from the books I've read, the coaching, the relationship counseling. And it's not really like a dating or even like specifically like, a sex book. It's more about men's health in relationships. And this is like relationships to romantic partners, but also to our daughters and our moms and, society as a whole, and like where we can fill this space. I feel again really fortunate. Naturopathic medical school, it was, it's an eye-opening experience, and it attracts a very diverse group of students and people who want to be healers. And, we were exposed to all of the alternative lifestyle stuff and things in different ways. Like it's a little different than even the flavor of, society.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I have this experience of this very inclusive and all accepting community. And then I know when I walk out of there, I'm like this white cisgendered male, right? And people look at me and see me in a very different way,
Yeah.
than how I see myself and experience myself. And that sort of stuff really, led me into these pursuits of understanding like what is masculinity and what is femininity, and is like the story I had in my head that really there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. What we're talking about here is immature expressions of masculine or feminine energy, right? It's not the like cultivated self-awareness space. and
Mm-hmm.
and it's not that we want to get rid of masculinity because it's toxic. We actually want to bring more of it into our society in a healthy way and in a balanced way, because we need the balance between masculine and feminine. From it's yin and yang. It's
I was
not male.
just saying, I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not male female. It's an energy. It's a polarity, and we all have aspects of both. And I think the way the society went was really to integrate people in a way. Like, and again, I don't mean this, it's not a judgment, it's an observation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like feminism, the movement for feminism has allowed women to become more masculine in their practice, and for men to become more feminine in their practice in their life. And again, so we've become more middle of the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways we've lost some of that polarity,
In
right?
a
And
lot of ways.
yeah, in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot
Yeah.
of, there's so many women today who are kicking butt in their life, and they're doing this with the strength of their masculine energy. They're structured, they're disciplined, they're paying the bills. It's all this order stuff. And I think there's a lot of women who are starving to reconnect with their feminine, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
they're looking for that. And then on the other side, there's a lot of men who have connected with their emotional body. They're good parents. They're wanting to be involved in their kid's life. They genuinely care, but then they're afraid to step into their purpose, into their focus and their intention. And it's happening in like all areas of life, but then it's really like colliding in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And people are struggling with relationships. And I think for me, part of what I thought my purpose was growing up as a good Catholic kid, wanting to make my mom happy, was that like, oh, I should be really good in relationships and be better than my dad was. And
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that was a story I had created, but that's not my purpose.
No.
And trying to live that way was not healthy for me. And it wasn't bringing out the best for me or these relationships either
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
that I was in. And even though I like considered myself very devoted and like a good guy, like I'm a nice guy in these relationships, they weren't the most authentic expression, and they weren't connecting, and they didn't push me into my most healthy expression of masculine, or allow my feminine partner to be in her most healthy expression of the feminine. So that was sort of the way that this evolution came to be for me. And then, you know, more recently I was like, oh, I'm gonna create my, because I've been writing for the book, and I've got like 50,000 words or something, you know, and like 9 chapters, and there's a part of me that just wants to keep writing more,
Yes.
because you keep wanting to like grow these ideas out. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, you need to start, put it together, you know, put your feet to the fire. Like
Yep.
there's enough here that it's valuable. And so I created the YouTube channel and like the Instagram page to force myself to start, one, putting some of this content out there, but also to motivate me to do it. And I'm thrilled at the response so far.
Yeah.
And I've had so many people be like, oh, this is what you were supposed to be doing. Like, you know, like resonating that back to me. I mean, in really beautiful ways, you
Right.
know, like yesterday I had 2 different messages from just 2 people, you know, and like a guy from high school that I haven't, you know, talked to for 25 years, and was like, hey man, I love what you're saying. Like, can we talk about this at some point, you know? And I'm
That
like,
is
yeah.
so cool. That's so cool. I thought the same thing. You know, I've been married. This is my third husband, but now we've been together 38 years. So this one's the keeper. And I was always attracted to law enforcement people, police officers. And I think that's because so everyone who knows me knows this. I have a lot of my masculine energy, right? I make lists and I organize and I have vision, and I can be razor focused on getting something done. But I I was born in June, so I'm the sign of Cancer. So I have a huge need to nurture. I, I'm like the mom. I want to make sure everybody's okay, and I like to cook, and I like to have parties and stuff like that. And I was seeking, I think, somebody to balance me out so that when I needed to wing off and do all of this stuff that really makes me happy, I don't do it because nobody else does it. I do it because I like to do it. But I needed that space where I could just kind of, lay back on the floaty in the pool and just dream and be artsy and creative and nurturing and caring. And I never really thought about it like that till I started listening to what you were talking about.
Mm.
People say all the time, how do you and Brian work? You're such different people. And no, I never thought about it. He's fun to play with. Like, I have fun when we play. He irritates me when he has that. I want things organized, but he brings me back from uber focus, right? He brings me back into the here and now. And do you not see that robin sitting on the tree, chirping away, singing her life to the whole world? Like that,
Mm.
because he notices stuff like that. And then, of course, I notice it as soon as he points it out to me. So you're right. It's that balance. And sometimes he's more of one, and sometimes I'm more of one. But man, I'm so excited for this. And who knows, maybe there's 2 books in this.
I
Right.
feel like, yeah, I feel like there is, like, because I definitely was like, all right, initially I'm writing this for guys, for men, like, who are sharing this kind of journey and experience of me, or masculine identified people who want to look at, like, I because again, we all have masculine and feminine energy, but we can tend a little bit more towards one or the other. And so just kind of, recognize that. But without a doubt, it's so valuable for women too. And there's a lot of, I mean, I've worked with women who coached men to work with me in relationships. And so I know there's men that coach and support women on these journeys too. And
Right.
if you can take anything, if anybody can take anything, from it of value, that's it for me. I just want to put information out that has the potential to be inspiring and motivating for change, and improving quality of life, health of life. And again, it's like our individual health is tied to our relationship health, and the health of our relationship is tied to our physical health. These things are so important for so many reasons. And then I think too, we need to model healthy dynamics for the kids today,
Oh,
because
man.
we're so so confused, and there's again and again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that
No,
people are more integrated and more in the middle, but it's hard, if we start looking at relationships and attraction, and there's, like for kids under 30, the relationship numbers are low. Like it
they
is
are.
it is low, the attraction stuff, and everybody's kind of buddy, in this like neutral way, and then
Yes,
struggling. And again, a lot of the guys I think are afraid, like we don't know what healthy is, and the last thing I want to be is toxic. So I'm really gonna pull myself back, and then women are like, well, I bet, the guys aren't doing it. They just want to play video games in mom's basement. So, I better get my shit together and go to school and pay the bills and buy the house and
exactly.
freeze my eggs and like do all the
Exactly.
stuff.
There's a guy, and I can't bring his name to mind. I saw a little live video thing the other day. I'm going to look for it, but he was talking about this uh, loss of polarity and
Hmm.
how this is not going to be good for the future of humans. And he compared it to it always being dusk. Like it's
Mm,
never bright and sunny and it's never fully night.
yes.
And he made the comment, how do you know day and how do you know night if it's always this dusk? And that really struck me. I know we have to have the balance. I know we have to have hot and cold, or there is no hot and cold, right? You can't. If it's warm, it's always warm. And I
Right.
thought that him using light was really powerful for me because I live on a farm. I wake up with the
Mm,
sun. I go to bed when the sun sets. And, I have the whole range of the day in front of me, and I can feel the changes in my body. I can feel how well I sleep. Uh, when my bedroom's dark and I turn off all the electronics and the Wi-Fi, and I'm just in this really quiet, dark space. Um, I think that's okay. So when do you think it's going to be done?
I want the book to go out next year. Like that's my,
Good.
that's the vision, 2026. I want it to be funny too. Like I want there to be humor and enjoyment to the book. And I'm really thoroughly enjoying putting the content out, recording the little videos and creating some of the different graphic stuff and sharing it. And yeah, so
I'm
it's a
so excited for that. Speaking of funny and including humor, I think my audience would really like to know this. So you're kind of you're a comedian on the stage.
yeah.
This is a hobby, right?
It's a hobby that I occasionally get paid for. I feel really comedy for me. I've always been a fan. And we speak a lot. So I was already before I ever stepped on stage to tell jokes. I had been giving talks in
Yes,
public and emceeing events, for at least a decade.
right.
And so I thoroughly enjoy being in front of people and sharing information. And for me, there's a couple things about comedy that I really love. It's very meditative in a way. Like when I'm on stage and connecting, there's no other thoughts. I'm just present in the moment, and that feels really fun and good. And then I think too, there's a part of me that wants to be liked so bad that it's a good practice for me to go up there and challenge myself to say things that I think people might not love or might, like maybe it's not quite funny yet or
Right.
and so putting myself in that situation, it's just something I really enjoy to do. I try to, go to an open mic at least once a week to practice. And my motto's just always been to say yes to any opportunity to perform. And so I've been really fortunate and got to go, do some shows on the road. And I just got an email this weekend from a local club, like they passed me through to be able to like work there on weekend shows and with bigger headliners and stuff like. So that's exciting. I don't ever want to people ask me, like, are you going to quit medicine? Like some of my patients, like, will be like, are you going to quit? And I'm like, no. I was
No.
like, yeah, this is my passion, is the, helping people to be inspired to change their health and their lives and well-being. And comedy's just, it's a creative outlet for me. It's something that I feel very, again, fortunate to get to do. And I'm such a big fan of comedy, and being a local comic, I'm able to get into all the shows and see my favorite people, and so it's really fun. I feel, again, lucky to do that.
Well, we're planning a road trip. I watch your page to see where you're going to be and when you're going to be there. And we're big road trip people, even if it's just for a couple of days. And we love to drive. So a 10 or 12-hour drive is nothing for us because we have fun.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the trip. People get on planes and like you've missed the whole country. You've missed the crazy things. Like the other day we were driving down the road and this guy was working on his fence in a tinfoil hat. And our whole car, all four of us, we just erupted into laughter. We didn't even have to say anything because there was this dude in the tinfoil hat working on his fence. And like you miss stuff like that when you fly. And I know flying has its purposes, but we like the road trip. And so we want to come watch one of your shows. The kids are young though. And I don't know if I've seen a venue that, well, they're 17 and 16. I don't know if you're in any venues that they could come into.
Some of them, some can. So there's definitely, I mean, I think, the clubs that like serve food can qualify as restaurants sometimes. And again, it depends on the shows. There'll be like all age shows or
All right.
18 and over. But the cool thing is the club that I just got the email from, they own, I think, like 6 or 7 clubs, and they are spread out. And so again, that's one of the things, I'm not doing it to make a living doing it. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And so I'm looking forward to getting to go travel and work at some other clubs and do some regional stuff. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah,
for sure.
especially one that's, maybe 5 or 6 hours from northeast Oklahoma. That's so cool. Okay, so can we circle back around to your work as a naturopathic doctor? People like to know, I think, and all of the folks who have been a guest on my show say something different. So it's always surprising to me. But how do you like to start your work with people? Like, how does that relationship begin? What does it look like?
For me, I mean, I do an initial evaluation conversation before we commit to really like work together, and the purpose of that is to connect with the patient's concerns, what they've been dealing with. But really, I tell them the most important piece is, let's talk about your goals. Like, what are the things we would want to accomplish in the time that we're working together? And when you imagine your health 6 months from now, a year from now, the health of your family a year from now, your kids, what does this look like? Because I am often working with people that are in families, they're married or they have at least one kid or another kid. And I tell them, I'm like, this isn't, whoever the initial person is bringing them in the door, it's not just them who's going to be impacted by this journey together. The whole family's going to be impacted. And so let's talk about everybody's goals and objectives. And then what can I do to help this group of people become more independent in their health, in their family's well-being? How can they, know more on their own what is working and not working for them with nutrition, in their stress management, in their sleep schedule, and the way they manage, just the day in and day out lifestyle choices. And then the other side of the coin is all the complementary and alternative medicine supports. What do we need to do with the vitamins, herbs, minerals, homeopathic remedies to support and encourage the body's own healing? And if like the patients and I can get on the same page there, we've got that beautiful foundation to then move forward. And, I tell them, like, this is just going to be a journey, and it's not about perfection. It's about persistence and a willingness to start making these changes. And, I think people today, we're the false promise of a quick fix is everywhere in everything. And so really letting, patients know, like, hey, this is a journey and it takes time for the cells in the body to turn over and for us to become a newer, healthier version of ourselves. So we want to allow there to be time, and we also don't need to suffer along the way. So we're going to try to alleviate and address stuff, superficially, while working on the underlying stuff. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like when people get that,
Mm-hmm.
then they're in,
Mm-hmm.
they're committed and they're ready to start moving forward. And then the little by little, the mindset shifts and the diet habits shift and their sleep schedule shifts. And,
Mm-hmm.
people, I know, I mean, I think Dr. Messer used to say this to us, or like what we'd hear from people is like, oh, I feel like myself again. Like, this and I had a woman last week and she was like, we're 2 months in, and she was just like, she's like, I want to share this with you. There were these things that I used to do, these hobbies. And she's like, I haven't thought of them for like 10 years because I've just had all this work and life and stress. And she's like, all of a sudden, these things are like rushing back into my mind. Like, oh, I need to go back out there and start pursuing some of these things that I loved for the sake of loving them,
Right.
And I was like, yes, like this is it. We're moving in the right direction,
She's thinking. She's
Yeah,
becoming resonant and
yeah,
harmonic. And yeah, yeah,
yeah.
totally. So do you have a clinic people come to, or are you virtual?
Yeah, I would no, I am. I have an office here in Louisville, and I'm sitting in my office this morning, and it's a really great. I'm in a collective space, so there's a
Oh,
fantastic acupuncturist who we've been friends since she moved to Louisville, but she was from Oregon and worked with naturopaths, and we've got a great space. There's a nurse practitioner down the hall. There's another naturopath who's getting ready to move back to California, but she's an SCM grad, like us, or Sonoran University now grad like us. Yeah. So, and there's a massage therapist. So we've got this really beautiful space. But I do work remotely. When I first left med school, I was in Boston, when you were up in New Hampshire,
yeah,
and we were nearby. So I still have patients from Boston. And
yeah,
when I split some time between North Carolina and Louisville, I've got patients kind of all over. So I feel
yeah,
lucky. Yeah.
yeah. I gave up the brick and mortar clinic uh, completely when I moved here and became way more of well, I think more like a tribal doctor. Like I
Yeah.
have my clan of people, my tribe of people, and I go see them or they come by. I mean, it's not really a clinic. They come by my house and we sit outside on the chairs and watch the lake and have our visit like that and
Nice.
virtual stuff. I wouldn't have it any different. It took a long time to sculpt and craft, and well, actually, it took a long time to uncover what made my heart sing. Like,
Mm.
and I had to hear that voice first. Um, okay, so uh, I was thinking of something as you were talking about your book, and I don't know if you have these plans or not, but I think it would be really cool. Are you gonna like maybe have couples come on? Like, are you gonna do a podcast, like a show?
I had not imagined doing one myself, only just because I feel like I'm spread as wide kind of as I enjoy right now, and I don't want I yeah I but my hope was to be a guest on lots of podcasts as I get
Okay,
closer to the book, or as the book's coming out, to be able to like talk about it, because I'm a fan. I mean, I listen to a lot, you
okay.
know.
Well,
Yeah,
if you ever are not spread too thin, here's an idea for you.
tell me.
And for those of you who don't know this, Dr. Swanz knows this about me. I am the walk-in idea. Like I just think of stuff. And then I tell as many people as I can. I can't do but a fraction of the things I think of, but I think they're so cool that somebody ought to do. All right. Here, if you're ever not spread too thin, I think you ought to consider something where you have couples on and the world, I mean, it have to be people who are willing to share, but the world can hear what they're going through and maybe hear some advice and input from you on how they can repolarize their relationships and rediscover their masculinity and their femininity. And no one, I don't think any one person has all the absolute answers to anything, but when I think when, well, we as naturopaths or healers or doctors, we think of things people don't think of ever because
Right.
of all the people we work with and just the kind of training we have. And I would love to be on the fly on the wall. And I would say things like Dr. Phil or Oprah, but I'm not talking about like show business, talking about a really in the moment, like in the heart, in the like, anyway, if you're ever not spread so thin, I would love to watch things like that, to witness that and witness people's transformation.
Yeah, I've thought about that with like a homeopathic intake. Like
Yeah, me too.
I've wondered if people would be curious to like kind of hear that because I do bring this stuff up in intakes and with patients. And again, it's not always it's not always about creating polarity for the bedroom and for that kind of sexual connection and charge, but it's about saying, wait a second, if I'm really feeling stuck in my feminine emotional, if I'm feeling overly, again, anxious, what am I doing that's working or not working for me to try to counterbalance that? And what people don't realize, but what we can help them understand is like when the masculine counterbalance to the feminine is about the structure. It's about some sort of container. So saying, hey, I'm feeling really emotional, I'm going to go watch this show and eat a bunch of junk food, that is a masculine counterbalance to this feminine emotion. It's not just this lack of willpower.
Right.
It's just you're looking for a solution for what you're feeling, and there's a way to feel the feeling more deeply while providing that counterbalance and structure that doesn't have to, spiral into the guilt now and the other
Yeah.
stuff. Like there's healthier expressions about it. And again, it's beautiful to become aware of this for ourselves. And then again, in partnership, to have the partner who's aware and is like, hey, I can hold that space for you, And
Yep.
so again, this is something like I will ask patients or even friends just when I'm talking to them, or girlfriends. Like the question I'll often be like is, how are you doing today? And then they'll answer, and then I'll be like, okay, how's your heart? Right?
It's
Like,
our heart.
and it hits them different because all of a sudden they'll slow down for a second, and they're
Uh-huh.
starting to take, inventory. And again, that's me stepping in and just giving them a little more structure to then sit with the feeling. And,
Yes.
and and then if it's like, oh, I'm sad or I feel a little anxious or angry, then like, where, what's it feel like? You can just really putting again some structure to around it helps.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes,
it's
I
cool.
agree. I've been teaching my teenagers, uh, well, they represent Long Shadows Ranch all over the place. And they run markets for us and they make deliveries and they're here. They receive people here when they come for a tour or to buy products that they run out of during the week and they want to buy. And one of the things we do is we greet people and we say, "Hey, how you doing today?" And so one of the things I've been coaching them on is make sure that when you ask that question, you stay present to hear their answer. It's not a superficial, hey, how you doing today? If you're
Mhm.
asking someone, how are you? How are you doing? Have have that presence of mind to hear. And if they say something, it's okay to say, oh, really? Like, do you need some help with that? Or do you want to talk about that? Or, I hope that resolves for you. Like, don't take it deeper than just the hey, how you doing?
Yes,
And we've been trying to work on that with them.
we need more of it. I mean, that's
We do. We do need more of it. Well, we're coming up on our hour. What do you want to tell our listeners? Well, what message do you want to leave them with?
I want people. I hope people feel hopeful and, optimistic that they are empowered to take charge of their health and of their life in a way that, maybe they have been either fearful of or uncertain, what the next step is. And I think, there's a truth in this kind of inertia or stagnation tendency that we all have, where we'll stay stuck where we're comfortable, even if we're uncomfortably stuck there, but just because it's familiar. And, we may not know exactly, every step along the way, but if we can get a direction and start making some change and just start moving, even if slowly, that's how you build momentum, and that's how you shift things. And it's never too late. We're never too old to make these changes. And, I'm closer to 50 than I've ever been today, and, I'll be closer tomorrow. And I feel like I'm just getting started in some ways. So, I want other people to know that's possible. And, I love talking about this stuff and empowering and motivating people. And I'm here to support them. You're here to support them. And there's a lot of beautiful people out there doing great things to help people. So hopefully, I want to believe health is more contagious than disease. And, it's time we shift it, because we need to.
I love that. I agree. Health is more contagious. Let's make it contagious. What a beautiful message to leave with our listeners today. Thank you for being here, Dr. Swanz. And all of you, if you're interested in reaching out and working with Dr. Swanz or following his work, all the information will be in the post of the podcast, in the notes, the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, the body can heal itself.
Amen.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Eli Camp.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me today. For those of you who have written in, emailed, and are interested in my books and other offerings, I wrote The Unvaccinated Child as a resource guide for parents and caregivers to navigate childhood illnesses in a natural and healthy way. And while the intended group was the unvaccinated, it turns out it's an important resource for the vaccinated kids as well, since vaccines do not necessarily prevent illness. Smoke Rings is another book I wrote, and that's to help smokers support their health, regardless if they plan to quit or not. So for people who smoke, love a smoker, used to smoke, continue to smoke, this book helps you be your healthiest version. And when I say it is judgment-free, it is absolutely judgment-free. You're free to make the choices you make. I'd just like you to find better health while you make those choices. My most recent book, Homeopathy, A Foundational Approach, is really great for someone, whether they're a complete beginner or they've already been practicing homeopathy. It starts at the beginning and it guides the readers through the basics and on into first aid and acute practice, so you can start using homeopathy right away. That's the most important thing to me, is to get folks using homeopathy in their everyday life. My workshops and courses can be found at either ecampnd.com or longshadowsranch.net. Have a great week. Again, thanks for joining me, and thanks for your support.